everybody, and welcome back to the channel. It's your girl, Lori, and I want to talk to you about how I let go of all of my traumas. Like, I didn't say forget them. I said let go of them with unconditional forgiveness. All right. So I really want to talk to you about that because unconditional forgiveness is a foreign concept and people are really resistant. Usually it's based in ego, of course, pain. So let's not negate that. But listen, it's also based in your ego. So I want to tell you the difference between the conditional forgiveness and untraditional forgiveness and why that's the path that I'm always going to take. I'm always going to take that, right? There's a place for both though, right? It doesn't have to be all or nothing gray area. We all can swim in the gray area, right? So let's talk about it. So what is conditional forgiveness? Conditional forgiveness is you have to take accountability before I can forgive you, right? So someone takes let's keep it light. Somebody steals your lunch from the refrigerator at work, right? They don't steal it. Well, yeah, they steal it. They know it's yours. Your name's on it. They eat it anyway. And you're like, okay, who took my lunch? Nobody's taking accountability. Well, you get wind that Melissa took your lunch. So you say, Melissa, blah, 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 said that you took my lunch. And she goes, yeah, I did. But that's it. Okay. Well, or like you're thinking, is she going to apologize? Well, you don't have to have a relationship with Melissa. You don't have to trust Melissa. But holding on to harboring, well, I hate Melissa. 5 years later, we're like, I don't like Melissa. She stole my sandwich 5 years ago. Oh my God, we're still there. Is that where we are? Why are we still on there? That's a conditional forgiveness. And there's a place for it, right? You could say, listen, I don't want to be in a relationship or have a friendship with you unless and listen, also keep in mind, apologies can be very, very hollow. If I walk up and I smack you in the face 500 times, and every single time I keep apologizing, that's going to fall very flat. You're going to be like, I don't give a damn what you say about apology, right? Because I'm not changing my behavior. It's a changed behavior. Words are words, blah, blah, blah. I love you. I'm sorry, da, da, da. They're words. They mean nothing. The words mean nothing. The actions mean everything. So you could say, if this person can't take accountability, then you know what? I'm just going to set distance. I'm still going to forgive unconditionally. And this is what saved me. And this is why I'm not triggered by my molestation, my many other areas of abuse and danger zones that I was in and stuff like that. So the reason being is because, so I want to use my dad, and I've used it before, but it was, I know my dad wasn't an all bad person. He was released from World War I in the 40s. He was born in 1922. Yeah, I was born to older parents. And he was released for schizophrenia. It was not schizophrenia. I promise it wasn't that. It was the bipolar, which was like manic depression, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, fast forward ahead, he was also an alcoholic. He also had pedophilia. He had like all of these things, right? Well, I know this now. I mean, obviously while you're going through it, it's not like you're like, oh, it's not my fault. Like you don't have that cognitive like intelligence. But I know that it was stuff that my dad was going through. And my dad on his deathbed still did not take accountability. I wasn't like, you better apologize before you die. I was just like, hey, I don't know. I'm going to absolve you of your sins. I don't know. Like, do you want to apologize? I never did anything. Oh, okay. We're still there. So he literally went to his grave refusing to take any accountability. I know that is very isolating for another human being. So, and by the way, I didn't need his apology. I don't know. I thought maybe he wanted to deathbed confessions or something. And he never did because he was resistant to say that anything was wrong. You want to talk about living in an ego? He was living in his ego, right? And a lot of other issues. But if I was to hold on to that and be like, well, he never apologized. Can you believe he never apologized to me? He never apologized to me. Well, then he still has hold over me. See, unconditional forgiveness is not forgiving. It is not permitting the action. It is releasing the hold that something or someone has on you. And I promise you, so pretend I never forgave him. Pretend I was still like, I'm so angry. You put me in, and I lived that for very much my teenage and early 20s. Like I've lived there. It's very familiar territory. But if I was like, oh my God, why would you do this? And that's not what parents do. And again, it doesn't serve my benefit. And it was a practice that I did of not just writing letters to people, which I highly recommend, and we burn them on the full moon and new moon, but it's radical acceptance. So this is where the DBT, which at the time it wasn't DBT. I mean, it was, but it wasn't like known as that when I was growing up. And this is why I also studied it, was because the radical acceptance is what saved me, is what saved it prevented my ego from rearing its ugly head, and it prevented me from not forgiving, because not forgiving was eating me alive from the inside out. Why did mom die? Oh, I was mad at my mom because she died when I was almost 14. And I was like, if mom would be here, then I played that whole scenario. If my mom was still here, that would have, well, actually it did happen when mom was alive, but my life would be so much better. You don't know that. It'd be different. You don't know it'd be better. It might have been worse. You don't know. You don't know. You start playing it out in your head. And the moment I was like, well, how do I do that? Right. I was like, okay, I could say I forgive you, but I don't really feel it. Right. And so it's like, okay, well, what could I do? Why am I giving my dad so much power over me? Yes, he's my dad, blah, blah, blah. But why am I putting him up on this pedestal to say that, yes, I was on the receiving end of hurt and pain and all of that other stuff going on physically and emotionally. But why am I putting my worth into him and into that action? And I even knew, like, I saw his release work from the military long time ago when I was younger. So I knew he was struggling with something mentally. In my brain, I was like, well, that's just a cop out. Like, I was always looking for a reason not to forgive. And it was isolating, and it was anger. I was angry. I was filled with rage. I was filled with Karenicity. That's right. I'm making Karenicity a word. I was such a Karen. I was just like, I'm entitled to this. This needs to happen. That needs to happen. All these things were going on. And who was doing that to me? I was doing that to me. I'm not responsible for the actions in which was inflicted on me. 100%. Yep, that's right. I'm not owning it. That was not my responsibility. That's right. I was victimized. I'm not going to be a victim, though, because if you're a victim, you're constantly replaying it. And the more you tell yourself the story and the more you try to figure out a why, the more you are creating your own suffering. Now you're creating the suffering. This was inflicted. You're creating the suffering. To obsess on it, you're creating and expanding on this suffering. And I think it's, you got to know when your moment is, right? You can't just seek it. It's going to come, but you have to start going, well, I mean, obviously my mom had passed, so I wanted my dad to be normal, whatever that was going to be. And he wasn't. And that was problematic. And it was not being able to release it. But when I did it is what it is. And trust me, that was a bitter pill to swallow. What do you mean my molestation is what it is? Because it is. I'm sorry, it is. It is what it is. It has happened. It is done. It was a moment in time. Yes, it's not to negate it. What I experienced was very real. But if I didn't let go of that, the release of, because I told him, I said, listen, that's fine. Because when he told me that, it was like 2 days before he passed. And I said, that's fine. I said, I'm good. We're good. I forgive you. There's nothing to forgive. That's cool. But I'm just letting you know for me. That's fine. I'm not asking you to take accountability. I'm telling you I'm good. And it was funny because you could see, like, he knew, and he knew for years, but he knew at that point in time, because I was almost 30, but he knew at that point in time, he had no control over me anymore. You could negate it. You could say you never did it. You can say I'm crazy. You can say all those things. He had no power over me. And it's reviving. You don't have to carry a relationship. I did continue a relationship with dad because we would go to the bar and we would play pool. And, it was just kind of one of those things. But it wasn't like a trauma bond or anything. It was just kind of like, okay, well, I mean, you're a faulty human being. And I know he was very isolated and lonely. And that was his stuff to process. But you don't have to have a relationship with someone if you don't choose to. But if you don't release oh my God, this is what this person did, and you keep holding out this hope that they're just going to come around one day, you are putting yourself down one hell of a rabbit hole that's going to be really difficult for you to get out. Because some people may never apologize. They may never know your side of the story. They may never see your perspective. And it saved my life. Oh my God, it literally saved my life. radical acceptance is just another key of it is what it is, accepting that what has happened, accepting that I have control over my actions now. It is my responsibility to heal myself. It is my responsibility to do my journaling. It is my responsibility to move my body. It is my responsibility to, fill in the blank. It's my responsibility. The moment I forgave unconditionally without the expectation of you saying that you needed it, and again, you don't have to pick up the phone and be like, "Hi, Mom, I know you're not apologizing, but I'm just telling you I forgive you." Like, you don't have to do that. It's an internal thing. When you do that, your boundaries will allow that to happen, and you start taking your power back. It's literally changed my life. It takes process, it takes practice, it takes all of those things. It takes time, it takes effort. It's not a one and done. It's not a one-off. But accept that people don't, here's the reality. They don't have to apologize to you. They don't have to. Radically accept that. You don't have to carry a relationship. But if you're carrying and harboring the anger and hurt, it's only eating you alive. You're drinking your own poison. You're allowing yourself to sit in that. But that is how I did it. And I'm not triggered by it. It's a huge part of who I am today. It helped contribute to that. How could I hate that? Because I love who I am today. Might not be who I am today if that didn't happen. But I'm always looking for the positive spin on it. So that's that wrap.